Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Devil's Breath by Lang Johnson, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. The moment Cassius saw her, he knew she was going to be his demise. Sera Dwari. His brother Christian referred to her as the Ice Queen, the Viper, the... "You have no chance in hell!" Christian yelled in his ear. He had to yell. The music in the club was so loud that the table they sat at vibrated. "Look, little bro, you begged me to tell you what I know about her, and I did. She's a fucking snob. Stop obsessing over a chick you haven't even spoken to." "What are you talking about?" Cassius knew exactly what Christian was talking about. Sera walked past their table 5 minutes ago and nodded, merely nodded, at Cassius, and he was captivated. He'd never met her before. They'd never said a word to each other. Up until a few minutes ago, Cassius didn't even know she existed. But ever since she crossed his path, he couldn't keep his eyes off her. In truth, he zoned in on the stunning woman and her equally stunning friend the moment they entered One Oak, the most exclusive hotspot in New York City, or so Cassius was told. What did he know? Sure, he'd been to his fair share of luxurious establishments, but he usually avoided the party scene. He wouldn't even be out that evening if his brother and his brother's accomplice, Damien, hadn't dragged him there. Cassius wasn't a nightclub kind of guy. He was more of a mountain climbing, dirt bike racing, bungee jumping, skydiving, open adventure, adrenaline rush kind of man. A scene where people drank overpriced liquor and tried to entice one another didn't appeal to him. He couldn't deny the club was exquisite. The small bars in his hometown of Gillette, Wyoming, paled in comparison. Cream leather couches surrounded private tables, one of them occupied by Cassius, Christian, and Damien. Atop their table were expensive libations, $400 bottles of vodka and equally pricey bottles of tequila. Dim lights hung from the ceiling, swirling like diamond-encrusted snakes. Crimson foliage overflowed from giant vases and wrapped around the columns framing the dance floor. On the stage was a famous R&B singer. And Cassius could have sworn he saw a few celebrities walking around. Definitely not Gillette. Even with all the extravagance surrounding him, Cassius wasn't a fan of New York City. He was only there to help his degenerate brother with a business endeavor. Help meant funding Christian, because the man was forever broke, and Cassius had billions to spare. Literally billions. "I told you coming out tonight was a good idea," Christian said. "But if you're looking for some action, there are plenty of other whores that'll love to ride you until the sun comes up. Sera isn't one of them. She's out of your league. That's saying a lot since you're handsome and rich." "Yeah, she's a bitch," Damien chimed in. He nodded toward the woman standing next to Sera. "Her best friend is stuck up too." "I don't want to hear that disrespectful shit. Cut it out or I'm leaving." Cassius sipped his vodka and club soda, swallowing his aggravation. Christian and Damien were the poster boys of misogyny. Two 32-year-old assholes who acted like privileged frat boys. Cassius fought with Christian numerous times about his behavior, but there was no getting through to his brother. If Cassius didn't need to be around Christian, he would have left New York days ago. "Hey man, calm down. We're messing with you." Damien's blue eyes glazed over, a mixture of too much alcohol and cocaine. "I forgot you're a fucking feminist," Christian sneered. "Quit being such a prude. You're 30, loosen up." He patted Cassius's shoulder. His diamond-encrusted watch shimmered like sunbeams. The man loved to flaunt wealth he didn't have. Whatever money he made was spent on extravagant items. Yet he barely had enough funds left over to fill up his Mercedes. How are we from the same family? Their parents raised them better than that, but there was a reason why Christian had been disowned. Cassius rubbed his forehead as if he could wipe away his growing headache. "I'm asking you to tone it down, that's all. Can't you drop the Wyoming-bred old-fashioned manners for once?" Christian swiped the condensation on his glass with a napkin. "Chivalry is dead here. City girls love to take Cassius raised his hand, palm forward, silencing his brother. He opened his mouth, an argument forming on his tongue. It was shut down by some commotion on the edge of the dance floor. What the hell? A man twice Sera's size grabbed her hips. With a quickness Cassius had never seen before, Sera, donning 6-inch stilettos and a tight dress, landed a low sweep kick to the back of his legs. The impact brought the man crashing to his knees. Slamming her palm into his chest, he collapsed on the ground. She held him down by placing her spiked heel against the hollow of his throat. Then she smiled. It made the hairs on Cassius's arms stand up. Sera's eyes were calm as a lake on a windless day. That smile, though, it was a feral nightmare, like a wolf grating at her manacles on the verge of breaking her confines. It was a glimmer of unhinged desire, a flicker of blood behind ravenous teeth. Her foot pressed down on the man's neck. Cassius thought she'd sink her heel deeper and sever his jugular. The music kept playing and people continued to dance. Most were oblivious to what was happening around them. But Cassius watched Sera with unbridled intensity. After a couple of agonizing seconds, she released him. Sera's smile dropped and her face turned to marble, like an exquisitely callous sculpture. Leaving the man on the ground, she walked away. Her friend, who had watched the entire scene with remarkable indifference, waved the bouncers over to take care of the mess Sera left behind. That was... Cassius didn't know how to finish his sentence. He had already been fascinated with Sera. Now he was borderline infatuated. "Oh shit, Sera's really caught your attention." Christian slapped Cassius's back. "May and Pa say I'm the crazy one, but you're the one who's fucked up in the head. It's not like it hasn't been proven by doctors." Cassius glared at his brother. For a blissful instant, he forgot Christian was there. "Don't stop being so damn insensitive." He slapped Cassius's back again. "Forget Sera. Let's talk about more important shit, like how Damien and I are going to be filthy rich once our business opens up." He flashed the diamond-studded chain around his neck. "Everyone wants to buy gemstones." "The babes are going to swarm us," Damien added. "Chicks are suckers for rubies and emeralds. They love those stupid crystals, too. They think rose quartz is going to bring them love and amethysts will protect them." He snickered. "It's bullshit if you ask me. But if they believe it, then whatever, as long as the money rolls in." He nudged Cassius's knee with his own. "Thanks for hooking us up with the funds, man. I appreciate it." Christian's lips set into a thin line. "Yeah, thanks, brother." It looked like it pained him to show any sort of gratitude. "Anyway, when our first shipment comes in," his brother continued to talk, but Cassius blocked him out. Nursing his drink, he concentrated on Sera. She was speaking to the DJ by the stage. All of a sudden, she looked over at him. Their eyes met, and her pouty lips twisted into a smirk. Then she strolled toward him. "Did you say Sera was out of my league?" Cassius spoke to Christian, but his attention remained on Sera. "We'll see about that." Christian followed Cassius's gaze. "I guess we will." Cassius tracked Sera as she crossed the floor, observing her. He couldn't help it. She took up all the space in the room. Cassius wasn't the only one mesmerized by her presence. Everyone she passed, men and women alike, stopped to gawk at her and her best friend. A dark-skinned woman who could have been on the cover of both Vogue and Rolling Stone magazine accompanied Sera. Her asymmetrical lace dress, strappy thigh-high heels, and a chunky Chanel necklace screamed haute couture. Metallic gray lined her brown eyes, which matched the silver dye in her tresses. Her hair was buzzed on the sides and the top layered and styled into a faux hawk. She had a sleek body, and her legs went on for days, a fashion designer's dream. Yet there was something lethal about her, as if they were ready to strike at any moment. She moved with extraordinary grace, like a snake with a fixed focus. Sera was the complete opposite of her friend, tiny and all curves. She was no more than 5 feet once she removed her designer stilettos, Louboutins. Cassius spotted the red bottoms with her when her heel decorated a man's throat. He was no stranger to fancy things. He was born into money. Though he preferred not to parade his wealth, the women bathed in hers. From the $1,000 shoes to the diamonds adorning her body like a second skin. Cassius convinced himself that Sera was a goddess in another life. Her jet black hair, pulled back into a high ponytail, shone like obsidian. Her gray eyes glowed like a cat's at night. And her bone structure could have only been crafted by the hands of a skilled artist. Cassius had been with his share of women. Their beauty was gentle and welcoming, akin to soft rays warming his skin. Their presence was soothing, like songbirds preening their colorful feathers under the sun. They embodied soft kisses, tender caresses, and sweet whispers in his ear. Sera's beauty was different. It was cruel, biting like a freshly sharpened blade. And she was lust, pure, raw lust. It shimmered around her like a heat haze. She embodied carnal pleasure, secret rendezvous that left you with teeth marks and sticky skin. She was the kind of woman that doused desire on your flesh, making you yearn for more. If the other women were songbirds basking in the light, then Sera was a jaguar prowling the dark jungle. People parted for her when she approached Cassius's table. Sera walked as if she owned the place. She knew how to work the room. Sera shook hands, smiled, and laughed with those she seemed to know, but there was something off about her. Cassius had always been good at reading people. It was one of his gifts. Right now, the emotions in her eyes were blank. They were flat as a sheet of glass and cold as ice. He understood why Christian and Damien called her the Ice Queen. She was frozen to the core. Cassius, right? Sera asked when she reached him. Her voice managed to sound soft and husky over the squall around them. Christian frequents this club. He mentioned his brother was visiting from Wyoming. She and her friend sat in the 2 empty seats across from the men. Sera pulled her chair out far enough to where Cassius still had full view of her body. Christian mentioned me to Sera? Why? And you are? Cassius asked if he didn't already know, as if he hadn't been fixated on her for the past hour. Sera flashed a smile, closed-lipped, no joy. Sera, this, she briefly glanced at her friend, is Rain. Pleasure, Rain said, glorious boredom lining her pretty face. Nice to meet you both, Cassius replied. He said nothing else. That's it. That was it. Where was the smooth talker, the one who made women want to jump in his bed even when he wasn't trying? Where was the CEO of a billion-dollar corporation? The one who could close a deal in 2 minutes? Nice to meet you? How generic. Christian chuckled, clearly amused by Cassius's awkwardness. You'll have to excuse my brother. He's a little overwhelmed. This isn't his scene. He prefers low-key bars with his rancher buddies. Christian poured 2 shots of tequila and handed them to Sera and Rain. Sera held it in her hand, her flat eyes slanting at Christian. Drink it first. Much to Cassius's surprise, Christian obeyed. He took a swig out of the bottle. I'd never slip either of you a roofie, he snapped, but there was no bite in his tone. Rain downed her shot. Thanks. The woman somehow managed to make it sound like an insult. Sera took 1 small sip of her drink and placed it on the table. She tapped her fingers on her lap. Her red polish was a stark contrast against her white dress. So, Cassius, what do you do for fun in Wyoming? Christian spoke before Cassius could. Gillette is a town of 30,000 people. There's nothing to do there. It's the energy capital of the nation thanks to our parents. Oh, and of course thanks to my brother. He runs the family business now, the handsome face of Batista Holdings. Christian poured himself another drink and tossed it back. Cassius loves Wyoming. He's the outdoorsy type, so that dinky place is a dream for him. His idea of fun is climbing mountains with no rope. He thinks he's immortal. It's easy to believe when everyone worships you. There was a hint of disdain in Christian's voice. Isn't that right, golden boy? More than a hint. Cassius didn't think he was immortal. There was more to it. Much more. His brother knew it. As for the family business, Christian would forever be bitter, but it wasn't Cassius's fault that Christian threw his life away. It wasn't his fault their parents cut Christian off. He had dug his own grave, and Cassius was in New York bailing him out one last time. Sera seemed to ignore Christian's ire and focused her attention on Cassius. You're in the energy business. She crossed her legs. How's that working out? Cassius willed himself to keep his attention on her face. It's great. We own oil, coal, and methane. Was she interested or making polite conversation? Pa's retired. Christian slurred. The man was on his 10th or 11th drink. It was nothing new. Christian partied like a washed-up rock star. The more he drank, the more obnoxious he became. Cassius runs it all. He controls more than 1/3 of the nation's coal. Cool, right? He nudged Cassius's arm a little too hard. Christian was usually decent at reining in his jealousy, but now it dripped off him like sweat on a 100-degree day. Sera seemed unfazed by Christian's temper tantrum. Quirking a brow, she said, I just wanted to introduce myself. If there's anything you gentlemen need, let my manager, Nikki, know. She's behind the bar. She does own the club. Why didn't Christian tell him? Oh, yeah, because he's Christian, synonymous with asshole. The man got a kick out of watching Cassius squirm. Sera uncrossed her legs. Cassius's eyes snapped down to her lap and lower. Her knees were slightly apart. He caught a glimpse of the bare slit between her thighs. Fuck. The woman wasn't wearing any underwear. It doesn't go with the dress, Sera said. The lines would show through. There was humor in her voice, but when he looked into her eyes, he saw hollow voids that held no amusement. A flush heated his cheeks. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Have fun in the city, Mr. Batista. Sera stood up and tossed her ponytail over her shoulder. Maybe we'll cross paths again. Okay. Okay, what was wrong with him? This was his chance to say something slick, but apparently he forgot how to talk. Hey, Rain, Damien finally spoke. Want to hang out later? Rain pushed her seat back and hopped up with effortless elegance. The look of contempt she gave him was impressive. It was as if a pauper had asked the queen to marry him. No. One dispassionate word before she walked off with Sera. Damien whistled. I told you they were bitches. Christian picked up the shot Sera left on the table and drank it. That's the damned truth. Damien snorted. Anyway, what the hell was up with you, Cassius? Is that how you pick up chicks in Gillette? Christian burst into a fit of laughter. That was bullshit, little brother. It was embarrassing to watch. All right, I get it. Cassius rolled his shoulders back. Trust me when I say that it was way more painful for me than it was for you guys. The two men roared. Don't sweat it, Wyoming, Damien said. Sera has that effect on men. Shit, she has that effect on chicks, too. Cassius picked up Sera's shot glass, the one Christian emptied. A red lipstick mark graced the rim. I'll never see her again anyway. I'm going home in less than a month. You'll see her, Christian said, his slur worse than it was a few minutes before. Cassius disregarded his drunk brother's comment and watched Sera for the millionth time. He recalled the bare slit between her thighs. What did she feel like? How soft was her skin? Cassius wasn't into one-night stands. He wasn't into relationships either. He was always in a limbo phase with women, committed enough to leave his toothbrush at their house, but not committed enough to move in together. It boiled down to the fact that he didn't know what he wanted when it came to relationships. But he knew damn well what he wanted at the moment. Sera in his bed, just for a date, maybe two. That was not considered a one-night stand, right? Cassius leaned back on the plush leather seat. She owns this club. Go figure. We're still talking about Sera? Christian pushed up the sleeves of his button-down shirt. If you had any chance of sticking your dick in her, you blew it. Cut it out, Christian. Your brother has sensitive ears. Damien covered up his laugh with a yawn. What Christian meant to say is that no one fucks Sera. She fucks them. What the hell does that mean? Cassius asked. Damien didn't have a chance to respond. A cocktail waitress came up to them with a bottle of champagne. Not just any bottle. A 1998 Boral & Croft Brut Magnum, which cost $3,000. Cassius drank it many times. Placing it on the table, she said, "Compliments of the owner." Christian chuckled. I guess you did make an impression on the frigid bitch. We've been here a ton, and she's never given us anything for free. Cassius gazed at Sera. She and Rain were seated a few feet away with a man in a pinstripe suit. A fedora sat on his head, and an unlit cigar dangled from his mouth. He looked like a gangster from the Prohibition era. On the table was a bottle of Grey Goose. When he picked up the glass, Cassius spotted his tattooed hand. Sera leaned over and whispered something in his ear. The man laughed in return. Was she interested in him? He looked too old for her, but age wasn't a concern to most people. Why did she give me the champagne? It certainly wasn't because he captivated her with his conversation skills. What are you guys doing when you leave here? The cocktail waitress asked, jolting Cassius from his thoughts. Christian popped the bottle open and sipped from it. Damn, that's good. He glanced at the waitress. We're going to my brother's suite, Mandy. Want to come? Maybe you can bring some of your girls with you. Mandy looked at Cassius. We'd love to hang out with you. Cassius didn't want to hang out with her, nor did he want a group of strangers in his room. The plan was he would come to the club and go back to his suite, alone. Christian and Damien would go home to their separate apartments. I'm not in the mood, Cassius said. Christian elbowed him. Come on, we won't stay long. Promise. Please? Damien asked with pleading eyes. Christian always managed to put him in tight situations. Cassius grabbed the bottle out of Christian's hand and took a large gulp. Fine. You can hang for an hour. Damien pumped his fist in the air and yelled, Yeah! Christian blinked innocently. Of course. Mandy leaned over the table, her auburn hair sweeping over her shoulders. Her cleavage was in full view. I get off in 30 minutes, but it won't take me that long to get you off. She licked her lips. Where are we going, handsome? Cassius had no intention of sleeping with her, but for his brother's sake, he said, the Mandarin Oriental. Great. See you soon. Mandy stood straight up. I almost forgot. Don't worry about the tab. Sera said everything is on the house. What? Cassius glanced at Sera's table again. She was already gone.